There's something creepy going on in the background of Darling in the Franxx, and it finally starts to come to the forefront in this week's episode, where Zero Two is going completely insane and Hiro is going through sorification. The metaphorical madness continues in another crazy episode of Darling in the Franxx, which was very tense, action-packed, and also had some great characterization moments for Zero Two and Hiro. Yes, their relationship is continuing to get even more complex, as Hiro himself is quite literally transforming into something that is not quite human. He's going through a process which is known as sorification, which makes sense as these creatures are called klaxosaurs, and just like Zero Two, it looks like he might actually be transforming into something very similar to her. I've had a theory that since the beginning of the series he was going to become a being very similar to her in many senses, and I was expecting him to maybe even grow horns himself, maybe blue horns to go along with the whole red thing. It would be a very nice theme, the yin and the yang, especially with the connection that these two characters have. However, their current relationship is very strained, as Zero Two is going through some pretty big mood swings. She feels the only way that she'll be able to be human, or considered human, is to kill all of the klaxosaurs, to get rid of anything to simply compare her to a monster, to put her on an even playing field with her fellow human companions. It's some pretty heavy stuff, and throughout the entire episode, she is battling with her team against these klaxosaurs in a very different setting. We're actually out in the snow this time, and it certainly makes for a lot of really great imagery. In fact, I have to say there is one action sequence in this episode, which is probably one of my favorite things that I've seen from the series, where Hiro actually forcibly takes the reins of Strelezia away from Zero Two and actually uses that spear and actually shish kebabs 3 klaxosaurs all at once, 3 for 1. It was pretty freaking great, but even with that, she simply cannot be contained, and by the end of the episode, she goes into stampede mode, starts to go berserk, and even a weird metaphysical version of herself, which is completely blood red and looks like the devil, starts to choke out Hiro as she takes control, as if she is almost sort of sucking all of his life force away, as it is confirmed that that's actually what she's doing with her fellow pilots. In fact, she's already consumed over 100 different people at this point. So Hiro's head is officially on the chopping block here, and there's no way of telling if his friends are actually going to be able to help out in this situation, or if he's actually going to be able to control Zero Two. That's just one of the moments from this episode. Most of this episode right here is about this team who arrive at this place called the Garden, where all of these children actually grew up, and they're sort of manufactured, so to speak. This is where they actually create the pistols and stamens to pilot the giant Franxx robots. And the place itself is very disturbing, quiet, and sterile. And there's also something creepy about the fact that a lot of the times these kids do not actually survive this process and are simply disposed of. This is something that Hiro and his friends come to the realization of in this episode, when they thought that a lot of the people that they were there with when they were younger simply disappeared without a trace and were never spoken of again, and they couldn't even get any clear answer from the adults in the series, which of course has led to a lot of the theories that these children are not going to live very long, or even the fact that Hiro believes that none of them will actually end up becoming adults themselves. And it's sort of a homecoming for them when they come here, yet it's still completely alien to them in many senses. And it's hard to believe that they've said they've only been gone for about 6 months. I was almost certain that they were actually at the other place they've been staying at for quite some time, considering how accustomed they actually were to it. But considering where they are now, they're truly living in the laps of luxury when compared to the old sterile garden itself, which is filled with all sorts of secrets, and is also being attacked by klaxosaurs left and right. But like I said, the backbone of this episode is most definitely dedicated to Hiro and Zero Two's relationship, which little by little is deteriorating, with her becoming even more monstrous and cracking absolutely every single mirror that she can find. This is all basically for a big metaphor, is that she doesn't want the mirror to reflect what her true self is, which is, according to her, a monster. There's a scene at the end of the episode where she's in the girls' bathroom destroying all of the mirrors, and she's confronted by Ichigo, who's just completely horrified and can't even bring herself to barely look at her and can't even talk to her at all. It's a really scary moment that shows that the relationships between a lot of these characters are completely crumbling and they're all losing control. There's even a really disturbing scene where what I thought was going to be a very touching scene of the episode, where Hiro finally does confess his love to Zero 2, that he loves her for who she is, not the fact that she's a monster, a human, or anything in between. He simply loves her just for being her, but she misconstrues this and decides to jump his bones and even show him something beyond that of a kiss. But there's a scene where they actually are kissing and her teeth actually end up scratching his lips, which causes him to push her over, and you can see that there's already going to be so much tension between them simply because of that small little cut right there. It's a heavy moment, and it's filled with metaphors galore that you could fill it into a friggin' glass and drink it whole, but man, it's handled really freaking well. And that, combined with the amazing mecha battles in this episode, made this just a really hard-hitting episode. And I'm still loving to see where this is all eventually going to be headed, and how this is all going to tie into the other children which were introduced in this episode, which is the team that Zero 2 used to associate with in the past. One of them has that one blonde kid in it who's really creepy and super uppity and seems to have a thing for Ichigo. And I don't know, maybe they're just like Zero 2, maybe they're not quite human themselves. They all have weird multicolored hair and creepy looking eyes, so that is a possibility. So what's the rundown on this episode of Darling in the Franxx? This one right here was pretty solid, I am not going to lie. I loved all of the moments between Zero and Hiro 2. Really, that's the cornerstone of the entire series, and I felt like for the last couple of episodes, they've been sort of building up to that by ignoring them purposefully, not only to give characterization to the other people, but to build up that moment where these two characters were going to have a turning point in their relationship, and this was it right here. And it was heartbreaking to see, as Hiro's just had so many ups and downs throughout the entire series, and when he finally confesses his love for Zero 2, she kind of shuns him in a way and even calls him simply just fodder. She's just using him in a way to actually pilot this robot and fight against the Klaxosaurs. And you can tell that's definitely going to have a big effect on the way that they actually fight in battle. And you can see a lot of that in this episode at the very end, when she's just going completely crazy and losing control. It's a really horrifying moment too, when she finally starts to take control at the end, and you have that like weird form that's starting to choke him and suck up all of his energy. Yet at the same time, it all ends with him getting ready to go through like a full sorification process, so we might get to see something really crazy from Hiro in the next episode as well. And who knows, maybe we'll even get some answers as to really what the hell is actually going on in this world in the first place. That doesn't seem like the most important thing to the creators of the show, but I would like to know really what the deal is with this world. I mean, it's still such a complete mystery, but really, again, it's about the relationships of these characters and the changes and the puberty and all that other crap. There's also giant robots too, and that's pretty awesome. This episode also had great production value, just like the rest of the series. I liked the change of scenery. Being out in the snow was completely different, and I really love when they do stuff like that. It also made the world seem a lot more alive, as opposed to being just stuck in the middle of some weird giant desert. So I like that. I hope we get to see more scenery changes in the future. So there it is. That's my thoughts on this episode. I just can't wait to see how the cliffhanger ending is going to go, what this whole sorification thing really means. Like I said, I have a feeling Hiro himself is going to be very similar to Zero 2 and maybe even get horns himself, and that will bring these two characters even closer. But still, it's also going to mean a lot more questions and still a lot more mystery for really where the hell this whole thing is actually going to be going in the first place. So there it is. That's my thoughts on the episode. I'm giving this one right here a 4 out of 5. I'd love to hear your thoughts on the series. Make sure to tell me all of them in the comment section below, and what you hope to see from the rest of Darling in the Franxx. Thank you guys so much for watching this review. I'll see you guys next time, and as always, stay down, baby.